All right. Okay, y'all, we're going to go ahead and get started because it is 7 o'clock. Thank y'all so much for being present. And that is what we're going to talk about tonight, presence, which is one of our membership vows. And tonight, one of the objectives is understand the importance of connecting to God and others through worship and our small group community. I'm going to read
Very well.
John 15, 1.
She's going to talk first.
Yeah, I'm going to read John 15, 1 through 11. And it says,
Okay.
I am the true vine, and my Father is the vine grower. He removes every branch in me that bears no fruit. Every branch that bears fruit, he prunes to make it bear more fruit. You have already been cleansed by the word that I have spoken to you. Abide in me as I abide in you. Just as the branch cannot bear fruit by itself unless it abides in me, neither can you unless you abide in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. In other words, Jesus saying that I am the vine and that we are the branches. And those who abide in me and I am them bear much fruit. So when we abide in Jesus, we bear much fruit. Because apart from me, you can do nothing. Whoever does not abide in me is thrown away like a branch and withers. Such branches are gathered, thrown into the fire and burned. If you abide in me and my words abide in you, ask for whatever you wish, and it will be done for you. My Father is glorified by this, that you bear much fruit and become my disciples. As the Father has loved me, so I have loved you. Abide in my love. If you keep my commandments, you will abide in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commandments and abide in his love. I have said these things to you so that my joy may be in you and that your joy may be complete. So, in other words, he's saying that Jesus is the true vine and that we are to abide in Jesus. In other words, and Jesus is abiding in us. So it's like a reciprocal thing. And when we abide in each other, it just gives us that much strength, and we are truly becoming the hands and feet of Christ. But Jesus is the vine, and we are the ones, the branches that branch off from the vine. And as we branch off, we're just continuing to grow in ways that we are becoming more like Jesus Christ. And he says, apart from me, when we're detached from the vine, we don't grow. And just think about flowers. As those flowers are detached from that vine, as those leaves fall off, they wither and they die. But as long as we keep watering, even keep watering ourselves with scripture, keep watering ourselves with each other's knowledge and supporting and encouraging each other and just being the hands and feet of Christ, we will continue to grow spiritually because we need each other. And our presence is very important. I'm looking at all of these faces right here. And I know all of y'all have given each other encouraging word because y'all have given me some encouraging words and smiles and waves. And it has really helped me on my journey. And I know it has helped all of you on your journey. And presence matter. It means a lot. So the next one I have is Psalm 100, because we're going to be talking about worship. Psalm 100 says, make a joyful noise to the Lord, all the earth. Worship the Lord with gladness. Come into his presence with singing. Know that the Lord is good. It is he that has made us, and we are his. We are his people and the sheep of his pasture. Enter into his gates with thanksgiving and his courts with praise. Give thanks to him. Bless his name, for the Lord is good. His steadfast love endures forever, and his faithfulness to all generations. Let me cut my phone off. I'm sorry about that, y'all. So making that joyful noise to the Lord, that's what worship. Do we always, when we talk about worship, and I know it's like making sure we be present, our membership vows is being present at church and our small group community. But when we talk about worship, where else do we worship the Lord at besides church? Or is there somewhere else we worship the Lord?
Everywhere we go.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Everywhere we go. Because we have seen this with the pandemic. When the church doors were closed, did it stop our worship? No, it did not. We found when on Sundays as it would be in live stream, we worship, and I'm sure some of you found other places to sit and to read the Bible and just to have some private worship at home. Yeah, because we are the church. The church is the place where we all gather in community and we grow together. It's a common place, but wherever we go, we are the church. Now, I'm not saying we don't need the church, because we need the gathering place so that we can have a place, a building to grow, and so that people can come and have all the resources and have all the teachings and have everything that we need. But we are the church. So wherever we go, we represent the church. And that's why our presence matters. Our presence matter. You matter. Your life matter. Our presence matter. Let us pray. Holy God, we're just so thankful for this time that we have together today. We thank you, dear Lord, for all of those who are present today as we continue to just go deeper in what it means to honor our membership vows. So gracious God, continue to be with us. Strengthen us on our journey. Help us, dear Lord, to understand that our presence truly matters. It matters to you, and it matters to all of those who we connect with. So gracious God, be with us tonight as we continue to dive deeper into your word. In Jesus Christ's name we pray. Let the children of God say together.
Amen.
Amen. Amen. Amen. All right. So first, we're going to talk about this presence in the small group. Now, this is a book right here. I want to read to you something I got out of this book. So this is one of my spiritual disciplines books that I received when I was at seminary. And one thing about it is that I love this book because it talks about spiritual disciplines as far as why you need to fast, and small group, about covenant group, about discipling, a Sabbath, worship. So this is a pretty good book to get, Spiritual Discipline, the Spiritual Disciplines Handbook. But I'm gonna read this little section about small group because it's talking about Jesus. Jesus was never a lone ranger. And it says, Jesus was never a lone ranger. He has always been part of a divine community with the Father and the Holy Spirit. And when he came to earth, he continued to live his life in small groups. He began his ministry by choosing 12 disciples to be with him. Then he spent 3 years pouring himself into this small group. He taught them truth about God and about themselves. He modeled spiritual practices for and with them. He introduced them to experiences of service, witness, and healing prayer. And day after relentless day in the messy, hard to control center of community, he gave them the gift of his full presence. Spiritual transformation is not a solo event. God works in us through others. Dan Myers suggests that babies should have a tag attached to their toe that reads, "Life is hard." Do it in groups. We all need a circle of friends to encourage, support, and speak the truth to us. Without their authentic voices, we may never see who we are. It is the unconditional love of small group that can give us the courage to name the good, the bad, and the ugly about ourselves. Small groups can help us press into God's love when it seems beyond us. Many of us recognize that small groups, they're a good idea. We can even identify places of loneliness and times when we feel invisible or unknown. But the pace and activity in life overwhelms us, and a longing for meaningful relationships does not necessarily translate into intentionally making room for them in our busy schedules. Still, the discipline of doing the spiritual journey in the company of others remains Jesus's model for discipleship. As seasons of activity shift, re-examine your priorities. So how is your small group helping you with your life experiences? That's the question I have for y'all. How is small group helping you with your life experiences?
Well, I want to back up just a little bit here because in this lesson, it's something important for us to realize as Christians of this time. And that is when Wesley and them, don't you remember somewhere in there, somebody was teasing them about them meeting and everything. Because up until that time, the church revolved around the ministers, not around the laity. I mean, the laity had to come and be supportive and everything, but there weren't all these small group type things. I mean, Sunday school, in essence, was a extremely new feature. So what Wesley did was dramatically change, how, especially the Protestant side, looked at things, and small groups came into existence, not only for them, but for the world, what it amounts to.
Yes, that's true. And that's what I was going to get to in a minute. So with the small groups, Tommy, that is how Methodism was formed, because John Wesley, he was so methodical, and what he was trying to do was get people to reach deeper into their souls, and he formed these classes and he formed these bands, and then it just grew and grew and grew, and then it became the Methodist movement. And that is how, that is why, our liturgy is so profound and so rich, because it pierces through our souls, and it gets us to thinking, and why, Methodism is built on a lot of small group communities so that we can truly grow in our spirituality. So the question is, how has your small group helped you to grow?
Well, I think one of the small groups that many of us are in is our Sunday school class. And I think, that can be, I think there are other kinds of small groups in the church, but by attending the Sunday school, we not only have a sense of fellowship with each other, but we learn about the Bible and how we should live our lives. And I would say that gives us a chance more than formal worship to learn and to ask questions about the particular lessons we're taught each week.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to speak a second to Richard's thing about Sunday school. We can personally testify that Sunday school must be a Southern thing in the Methodist Church. I don't know. Some of you know our son and daughter-in-law moved to Northern Illinois about 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And they go to Methodist church, but they don't have Sunday schools as such. Even they have small groups. But the thing is that what we've learned from them talking about it through the years, and of course it got totally disrupted with the virus, and Illinois still is not back doing some of the things we are. I'm not sure that they're even having worship yet. But the thing about the Sunday school was they would say, well, we're going to have a small group on XYZ. Well, maybe 3 or 4 or 5, maybe even 10 people would do that. They'd study XYZ book for 6 weeks. But then Emily would say, or especially she talked about one Christmas, but then she'd say, well, then that'd be over. And they'd offer, you know, 2 or 3 options, I think. But there never was the continuity. You got to know people, but people didn't participate in those, it seemed. I mean, their congregation's nothing the size of ours, but anyway, it never satisfied their need for what Sunday school does. And then in addition to these other small groups that you've already mentioned and that's talked about in our book, I think it's even before they were there, they were in Southern Indiana for a short while. They didn't have Sunday schools there either. So I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It's an important part of our life for sure. And I think of our church's life.
Mm-hmm.
I think about the difference in worshiping in church and going to Sunday school is that you have something to prepare to study, whereas you don't get that in worship. You go and hear and worship rather than study.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think with small groups, if you're just going to worship, I think it's hard to maintain those connections with your church family. It's hard to grow with your church family, and which also makes it easier to pull away. Maybe you're going through a hard time, or it's just my job schedule or whatever, and it makes it easy to step out because there's a small group does keep you accountable.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does.
One of the things also in a community like Collierville that has a lot of transition, I guess you could say,
Mm-hmm.
it's an ideal place for people. I mean, when I see first timers, I tell them there are a multitude of small groups, and all you have to do is just raise your hand and say, I want to go, and you're there.
Mm-hmm.
And so pick out what you want and go get it.
You always mention Sunday school too.
Oh, yeah.
And I know you were also mentioning that, you know, would it be the hands and feet of Jesus? And I know the few mission things I've done here and stuff has been through my Sunday school class. You know, I've done St. John soup kitchen and stuff, and that's my connection to get to know to do some of those things.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah.
And I know I've shared this with Tondala before, so she's already heard this. But when I first came to this church many, many years ago, there weren't all the Bible studies. There were not all the small groups.
Mm-hmm.
The women did UMW and the men did United Methodist Men.
Mm-hmm.
And that is something that I have stuck with all of these years. And the result of that is that I have been able to form relationships with women that I never would have even met in the church. And have been able to be mentored by them. And that's been a huge part of my church life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's cool. And even a different version of small group, if you will. I know that with the Snows and with the Coxes, our sons have played basketball together at the church. And that's been a whole nother support network and things as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I was
The
just gonna say,
wonderful thing to me about the women's groups and our individual smaller circles within the bigger UMW is you get to know young, old, and in between.
Mm-hmm.
Like Janet's talking about some of the elderly ladies in our church. I would have never had an opportunity, even though I've been here for so many, many years, to really
Right.
gotten to know them well. And that's there again, is just the small group thing. And in our Bible study ones or whatever's, you can have a mixture of age. And that is just awesome. That's so important.
I think it uses those people too when you're in those small groups to minister to you, and help you grow. And as we help each other deal with our problems and praying for each other, I'm in a big group of, well, there's about 8 of us, moms that all our boys played lacrosse together. We never did anything together while they were playing lacrosse. And after they graduated, we started getting together, but it has turned into a prayer chain. There's not a day that there's not 30 something prayer requests on my phone from them. And it's been a big blessing for that.
That's wonderful. Yeah. So I think that we can all agree that there's some necessity and some vitality in being connected to a small group. Yeah. And on page 37, at the beginning of chapter 3, it talks about Larry. He had says cancer brought Larry to me. So Larry had cancer, and he was wondering the question that he got, and I got it underlined. He asked one of the writers, he says, can I get to know Jesus? This is like the second paragraph. Can I get to know Jesus without being involved in the church? And he says, it's the kind of question that many spiritually hungry folks are asking these days. I replied that because I believe Jesus is risen and present in this world, I suspect that it's possible to run into him just about anywhere, and that he could get to know the story of Jesus by reading the Bible. So in other words, he told him, to read the gospel, but he still invited him to this men's group. And when he invited him to this men's group, he eventually started leading the group, and he started coming to church on Sunday. And the last paragraph says, it's possible that Larry would have gotten to know Christ without the church, but I wouldn't want to bet it. It mattered that he showed up. His presence made a difference because he started going to this men's group. And like you say, all of this accountability, this love that was shown, I'm praying for you. You don't have to go through this alone. We are here for you. Call us, we're going to bring you a meal. All of that is what transformed his heart and was like, okay, I'm coming every Sunday. Not only that, I'm going to start helping you lead this men's group. So it also shows us that, that we continues to have this open door, open mind, and this love for each other that we can't keep to ourselves. We don't supposed to keep it to ourselves. That's right, Pastor. Pastor was like, no, we're not supposed to keep it. We're supposed to no, that's right. We're supposed to share this love. And let's look at page 38. I like this one. It says that second paragraph that says, no one walks the discipleship pathway alone. There is no such thing as solitary Christianity. Being a follower of Jesus means being in community with other followers of Jesus. We can be religious or spiritual without the presence of other people in our lives, but we cannot be growing disciples of Jesus Christ without the encouragement, guidance, wisdom, and accountability of other disciples. Anybody want to say anything about that?
Well, I was just thinking how it works both ways. That each one reinforces and supports the other. the person who's coming to the group and the group itself. So it's a blessing for everybody.
Yep.
Well, I have this underlined also. He says, I know of no way to experience the fullness of Christ's presence without being a part of a Christian community in which to worship and grow as a disciple of Jesus Christ.
Yeah. 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 And then I have on that same page, on page 38, Jesus demonstrated life in community by calling 12 ordinary men to become his disciples. He promised that wherever 2 or 3 are gathered together, he would be among them. The Last Supper, he raised Christian friendship to a sacramental level when he said, I do not call you servants any longer. I have called you friends. The Apostle Paul told the disciples in Corinth, now you are the body of Christ and individually members of it. So it just lets us know and help us to continue to understand why Jesus could not do this work alone. Jesus called the original 12 to help him to do this work. For one, he knew that he was going to be leaving and he needed the work to continue.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
That's right. Go on, talk, Miss Rosemary.
That's what I was saying. That's exactly what I was thinking. Yeah. It would have ended when he was hanging on the cross. That'd have been amen.
Yep, that's true. It would have ended. And then another thing that's coming to me, sometimes being in a small group is hard when you're trying to figure out how to help someone and you don't know, sometimes we don't have words to say. But your presence is what matters. I can remember Melanie told me she went over a church member's house and she says, Tondala, I didn't know what to say. She said, so I just sat there. I said, your presence meant everything. And it's
that's one of the things.
Go ahead.
That's one of the things that in Stephen ministry, when you're in that program, you learn that sometimes it's just sitting there with that person, and just listen. You don't have to do any talking. You don't have to do any, preaching. Just let that person unload for you.
Yep. And so to get back to, I'm gonna share my screen. So, the small groups they were at, let me see if I can get it. Hold on, y'all. I hope this is it. Let's see. Hold on. Can y'all see it? Y'all see my screen?
Yes.
It's blank right now.
Yeah, it's black.
It's loading.
Okay, it's loading. You don't see it? It said, bring your shared window to the front. Hold on. Let me see if I can do it again. Okay, share.
There it is.
No, but that's something else. This is what I want. All right. Can you see this?
Yes.
Yeah.
Can y'all see this? Okay. All right. Okay. So I showed them this Sunday. So these are, like we said, if we look at page 30, at page 40, let's look at page 40. And where it says the small groups, that third paragraph, it says the small groups at Oxford were the first example of the kinds of small groups that Wesley would later organize into a network of class meeting bands and societies. These groups would become the organizational genius of the Methodist movement. When the movement had grown to the point that John West was preaching to thousands at a time, he observed that those who were active participants in the smaller groups continued to grow in faith, while those who were not engaged in such a group quickly fell away. But these questions right here, these were the self-examination questions. Now, some of these questions they asked in the small groups, but you were to take these questions home and you were to do a self-examination of yourself. And I'm going to show you these questions, and I want to give you a chance to read them, and then for a few seconds, and then I want you to, let's look at these questions and let's talk about which one stands out at us. Trying to scoop that over. Because these are some soul searching questions. Which one stands out at you? Anybody can go first when you're ready.
I don't like these questions.
I know. I agree. We talked about that Sunday.
Like how do I spend my spare time? I like Netflix. Okay.
These all the time or just some of the time?
I know. It really makes you do a self-examination. When I was like, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say they all lead to making you be obedient to God. If you're obedient to God, then you can answer these questions. I don't know if I said that correctly, but the more obedient you are, I think the easier these questions are to me, but none of them are easy.
Yeah.
Especially in today's world.
Yeah, and I think
grumbling, complaining.
Yeah.
There.
I think the one that's
number 12 to be kind of interesting in a way.
Number 12. Do I get to bed on time? And
kind of unlike some of the other things about how you're dealing with people and all that kind of stuff. It's kind of more about a personal habit or something that
Well, and what's funny is I'm guessing this came from John Wesley, and that was obviously an issue then.
It was. And
I mean, it's the issue now. It's an issue then. I mean, really, I thought just because we were so busy, but apparently they were having the same problem.
And that's what we said Sunday. We said we haven't really changed because it's just
just going around. I mean,
that's exactly what we said Sunday at the Sunday Bible study, that humanity really hasn't changed. It's still the same. Yeah, that do I get to bed on time and get up on time? I was like, well, maybe that has to do with work or getting your time in to make sure you have time with God. You know, do I pray about the money I spend? You know, am I enjoying prayer? Yeah. These questions just really make you think. They really do make you reflect.
I was going to ask the question, where in the Bible, though, does it tell me what time I'm supposed to go to bed and what time I'm supposed to get up?
I love that. The page got torn out of your Bible.
Oh, okay.
I think the other ones, the other questions are more about, self-examination and things like that, where this is one about a particular habit that you have, which is a little, it's probably, as Ann said, like being a Methodist, doing it on time, but it's a little bit different than, do I pray? Do I insist upon doing something? It's more like, I guess trying to defining a rule for personal habit as opposed to your spiritual habit.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it goes back to discipline and to the obedient piece here. So if we're going to bed on time and getting up on time, I think it leads to us being obedient and doing and being able to pray and being able to spend time in the Word and stuff like that. So
having the energy and the good attitude probably to do all these other things.
Yeah. All right.
Two that hit me when I was reading through, did the Bible live in me today? And when did I last speak to someone else about my faith? If we're going to pattern ourselves after Christ, and we're going to be in small groups, and we're going to be praying for one another and supporting and reading the Word, then putting what we're learning and being motivated about, putting it into action, our faith into action. Those two kind of jumped out. Did the Bible live in me today? And how did it? I mean, we're trying to stay in the Bible every day, but now, am I living it? Is that patience there? Is that love? All the things that hit home.
Yeah.
I heard a preacher not too long ago say that instead of looking at the Bible's rules and this kind of thing as being a way to get to heaven, we should look at it as a way to live well on earth.
Yeah.
And that kind of made an impression on me, because that it's the same with these things, how to have a good life.
Yeah. And what's coming to me is that when you look at them at first, and I think we just did that because I did it when I was in seminary, and I hadn't pulled them up again until got ready to do the study. And it's like, these are crazy questions. It's not, these are difficult questions, but then you start reading them, and then you really start soul searching and like, okay, as a follower of Jesus, I really need to look at these and reflect on these and see how my life is aligning with these questions.
Amen.
Hey, Tondala, did they go through these? If I understand correctly, did they do these questions every time they met?
They didn't do them every time they met because that would be a long meeting.
Yeah.
But they had some of them for the bands, some of them from each one, some of them for the classes, the bands, and so they didn't do them each time, but these were self-reflection questions that you were to take home. And then they had some of them, research has shown that they didn't go all 22 of them during their class meetings, but they did some of them. Yeah. Yeah.
I think in the context of this lesson too, that maybe it means that in addition to just being present in the presence of our human bodies, being present in worship and that type of stuff, that maybe it's trying to say, be present in spirit and mind in all that you are seeking to do by patterning your life after Christ or whatever.
Yeah. And I'll have these questions at entrance 4, just in case you want to pick them up and look at them. So I'll put them on the table by entrance 4. And then we'll try to get them on the newsletter email sometime during this series as well. Yeah, but
picture on my phone.
Oh, you got them. Anybody else want to do a picture on their phone? I need to share it again. Okay, you got it. All right. Okay, but I can't leave this small group portion before we go to worship without telling you about John Wesley and the Moravians. So you do know that he was reluctant to go. Well, that Aldersgate experience where he had his heart strangely warm, that came from his reluctance. He was reluctant to go to that meeting, but it also came from him wanting to have more faith. And he felt like he had lacked faith because he was on that ship with the Moravians to the Americas. And he wanted the faith that they had because they didn't have any fear. They just kept praying and praying and praying. And then when he was on his way to that small group meeting, and he heard Martin Luther's Roman epistle, preface to the Roman epistle, that's when his heart was warmed and he realized, he says, I do have faith. I got it. And that's why we are so ingrained in this grace theology, because it's by grace alone. And that's what he realized. So now we're going to move on to worship. I have some questions to ask you about worship. What aspects of worship are meaningful to you? What aspects of worship are meaningful to you?
We have to say sermons, right?
No, you don't have to say sermons. No, serious, you know.
That was good.
You don't have, yeah, but what
follow closely by music. I love the music.
Yeah.
Music's my first.
So, and that's it. I think music sets the tone for the sermon. It sets the tone for the worship. Imagine if the sermon was first. Look at Rosemary, look like, no, dick. I'm just being, it's the music.
Well, and especially I think when you know that the music has been chosen specifically to be about the scripture and to fortify it or emphasize or whatever, the scripture and the sermon. So I'm with Sam. Music. I used to sing in the choir, and I don't anymore because my voice is. But I don't have that great a voice. But I love music.
I do too, and I agree. I think music. Even you ask the younger kids, they will say, the younger generation, they will say music. Music, it sets the tone for worship. And then when Wayne gets on that organ or that piano and just let it flow, I'll be like, wow, yeah, it's music.
Special
music. Yeah. How is entering the space of worship at church different than entering a concert hall or a sports arena? Anybody want to respond to that? How is
Tondala, would you repeat that? We've got a train going on by over here.
How is entering the space of worship at church different than entering a concert hall or sports arena?
When you enter a concert hall, you're there to be pleased, for it to be entertained. And when you come into worship, you're there for me, to listen to what God has for me and to praise Him and be thankful for all He's given me, and open my ears and my heart to what He might have to say to me.
Well, there's a mood of reverence when you enter the sanctuary.
Yeah.
And the same thing about the physical surroundings. I mean, even the pews and everything I touch, I just feel like it's God's. It just needs an extra level of respect. And yeah.
Yeah.
I think it is good that it seems like you feel like you're more an active participant in the overall experience rather than just a part of the audience. At least that's what makes it more meaningful to me, is that you're actively participating in the worship of God, not just, if you will, watching the choir or watching the preacher or watching someone else. You're participating as an active part of worship.
Yeah.
So growing up Catholic, I will agree with the reverence part, because when you entered the church in Catholicism, you were quiet, you walked your aisle, you genuflected, sat down, you prayed, you were quiet. But I asked this question, and I do agree with Kim with the reverence, and you're there to, absorb the Lord and everything. But let me just throw this out for a comment. Wouldn't it be great though if we entered the church with the anticipation to be filled with Jesus, like we enter the sports arena with the anticipation to be filled with the excitement of the ball game?
That's good, Sam.
Yeah.
Very good.
Dig down deep.
Yeah.
When we were talking about worship, the first question, when I was in Disciple a long time ago with John Meeks, which I just love that man, but he, talking about music, he said, it took him a while to really finally just really think about the words, every word that you sing in that song. Don't just sing it. Meditate on those words. And that made a huge difference for me in that act of worship as singing.
Yeah. I would say the music, it prepares me even for the sermon. It's just something about that music. Yeah. And when you were saying that it activates, I agree with you, Sam, about coming into worship and with the expectation of just how we are excited about being at that sports arena, that we and all of that's going on in the game, that we expect the Holy Spirit and to be filled with the presence of the Lord. But when do we start, how do you feel once you as you are driving to church? Do your emotions change? How do you feel from the parking lot to the sanctuary or to the small group? Is there a different feeling? Because we talked about this, it activates. Worship should activate, and it should activate you, like as you are entering the parking lot or on your way, your spirit should change. Do y'all feel like that?
Well, it's better now that the kids are grown.
That's exactly what I was thinking. They're not yelling in the car, get out, you're going to Sunday school.
You just take used to it. By the time we got to church, we needed Jesus.
Somebody tell me one time it wouldn't be Sunday morning if they didn't see me in the parking lot with the boys cleaning their faces off.
Spit shine them. Yep.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, it's better now.
Yeah. But it just does something to us. Getting ready for Sunday, it just motivates me. I love it. And anybody else want to share something about that?
Yeah, I was just going to say, Tondala, when we were coming back from COVID, which I guess we're still coming back, but the first Sunday that the Common Cup was open, a weird thing, but it's like walking in those doors and hearing all the chatter, and there were greeters there, and it was the best feeling to me. It was like, we're at church, we're here, we're all together again. And that was, and for it to have been that coffee shop, that was the catalyst for that.
Yeah.
So I follow this guy on Twitter, and he's a doctor at Lee University in Cleveland, which is a Christian school. And one of his, what he tweets out, he says, you don't have, you don't have to go to church on Sunday. You get, to go to church on Sunday. And there's definitely a difference. So now, like you said, our kids didn't know that, but
Exactly.
they had to go to church.
Yeah. Yeah. Anybody else want to share? All right, so we have the 4 basic orders of worship. Let's look at page 42, the gathering of the church. It says, when we worship, we come from all the ordinary places and patterns of our lives to enter into an extraordinary place and time when our attention is drawn out of the narrow confines of our self-interest into the presence of God. The Apostle Paul heard the call to worship in the words of the Old Testament prophet Isaiah. Sleep or awake, rise from the dead, and Christ will shine on you. We are so easily intoxicated with the values, attitudes, and priorities of the world that we might as well be asleep in the presence of God. Worship begins by awakening us from the intoxicating stupor of the culture around us. We are called to wake up to what God has done and is doing in Jesus Christ. The awakening begins before we enter the building. Then he talks about something at Hyde Park about hospitality. And then he said, let's look at this last pair. Well, I can go. At Hyde Park, we talk about hospitality from the street to the seat as a means by which the Holy Spirit begins to work in people's lives. We are awakened by the warmth of the welcome, the physical setting in which we worship, the music we hear, and the first words that are spoken to call the congregation into the presence of God. And we do it together. It matters that we are in worship with others. We can have individualized religious experiences, watching the sun rise over the mountains or watching the sunset into the ocean, but we cannot experience the fullness of Christian worship by ourselves. We do it together with brothers and sisters in Christ, whom we do not choose and who are drawn together in the name of Christ. I thought that was just so powerful when I read that. We do it together. It is something about worshiping together. You know, during this pandemic, we were worshiping, you know, with our spouses or worshiping alone. But now we're back at church. It's something about, for some of us who are back, it's something about worshiping together. And then for those, yeah, it's just something about worshiping together. What is it? Y'all want to talk about that? About worshiping together in this sanctuary.
The thing about is the totality of that setting. Just think about it, though. All the parts that come together, from your Sunday school teacher, you know, to who are the first ones you encounter as you go to the sanctuary? The ushers. Okay, when you get in, it's music. It's friends that you may not see, but on Sunday, it is hearing scripture being read, that a minister delivering a message. And then at the end, opportunity to come forward and kneel down and talk with your Lord.
Yeah.
So it's, to me, it's obviously the totality of it is what attracts me or I see.
Is there anyone here on this Zoom call who hasn't been back to in-person worship? You're still worshiping on Zoom. So tell me about, how do you feel the presence of everyone? Of everyone in here? Because we try to greet, we try to, you know, speak to make so that we can make sure that you feel the presence of everyone. Is it working? Do you feel the presence of the people so that you won't feel like that you're worshiping alone?
I do, but it is not. Okay. I miss being there.
Mm-hmm.
It's not as there's still something missing. I want to get back to that, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I found that the online worship, it was probably a little easier to get distracted, if you will, by things around, like by the train coming by or something like that, than if you're in the worship itself. And, you know, for me, one of the things that was, I found that I missed most is when we had communion, but I was at home. It just wasn't the same as being in the service during the communion itself. And I really thought that was a part of the online part of the worship that I felt came up short for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, in the fellowship before and after, and even though I agree with Sam, when I was a kid, and I grew up a Methodist, but in a little church, but Mama hush dush. I mean, we didn't visit around, seem like, as much before church. We did after, but the fellowship before and after, either with somebody new, you see somebody you hadn't seen and you try to, you know, have a conversation with, or just people, like Tommy said, you only see them at church. And so that's all a part that you couldn't do on Zoom.
Yeah.
It's still thankful that we have that opportunity to still worship.
Yes.
And not, because man, would it, and I think just like this, Zoom has opened up possibilities of still fellowship for those that can't get out.
Yeah.
And do.
It does. And I think being all together is definitely better, but I will also say that to me, one of the silver linings to doing the Zoom thing when we were all shut down was, like we talk about the reverence of the building and the place of the church. I felt like a degree of that was brought into my own living room. And that was cool to me. I felt like I got the church into my house. And that was cool and new.
Oh, I love
Especially when we started seeing the stained glass windows.
Exactly. I mean, they were not exactly. Yes.
Yes.
So that was pretty cool. I thought Jesus was here anyway, but I really got Jesus there then.
Yeah. Yeah. That was,
yes, I'm the same way. I like it once they started really to that wall.
Yeah.
Well, even before the pandemic, the live stream that our church has done for some time has been important to Tommy and I. If we happen to be out of town and being able to, and you know, hear the sermon. Of course, you were hearing it, not just seeing it, but that's been a wonderful part of our church for some years. And I think
I never had done that. Maybe I will now. Exactly.
Yeah. You don't see, but you hear it. It meant a lot to us. Driving down the street sometimes, maybe we'd be coming home, but we weren't going to get home. I mean, you know, we didn't get home till that night.
Right.
And so that we could listen to the sermon and this worship and everything as we were traveling back home.
That's it.
So, I just think that sense of camaraderie, I guess, is not more. It's much more than that. It's a spiritual connection with other people in the sanctuary. And I just kind of think the best illustration is our spirit song. You know, when I hear that, when I sing it, it just touches me, and it seems to me that it binds people together.
It does.
Well, I'm very appreciative of Zoom right now. That's sort of my lifeline right now. And I think the church has done a wonderful job of the best they can in getting it into the home for those of us that are at home. I greatly miss being in the body of Christ there, especially after we've sung in choir for 1,800 years, and all of a sudden we're not in the choir and we're not at church. And but you know, we've received so many blessings, and both you and Deborah have been to our home, and Mother just feels like she's connected, you know, to our church. And so we are making it, but it is not the same. I will tell you that. And but it's the best that we can do right now. And so we're appreciative and certainly pray for you all. And we'll be back. We'll be back. So
yeah,
not sure how many years, but we'll be back. We're still having birthdays here. And are blessed, very blessed.
Yes. So the other three basic orders of worship is the proclamation of the word. That's the preaching, the music, the scripture. Then the response to the word. That's the tithes and offerings, prayer, communion, baptism, and then the sending forth. That's the main thing. It is the taking what we have learned today out into the world. Taking what we have learned, that sending forth, taking it out into the world, and knowing that the Lord loves you and will be with you every step of the way. That's it. So it is 8:02, but before we leave, I have a question for you. And the question is, tell me, what would you tell someone about their presence being important in worship and small group?
Maybe to make them feel really needed, I could say, we need you, we miss you, and we need you. To maybe feel like it was about them, not about us.
Yeah.
Especially if it's somebody that was coming in and is not anymore.
Yeah. Even if it's online or in person, the presence is important, online and in person. Your presence is important, right, Ron? Because you have many of y'all have like online and in-person people. Your presence is important online and in person. Yeah. And some people, they're not doing either. You know, some people aren't doing either.
I don't understand it.
So your presence is important. And we have to stop saying, it's okay, we understand. We have to let them know that their presence is important, that we miss them. Yeah. All right. Anybody got anything else before we pray?
You have a cue card for us of what you think is the best way for us to say that?
Okay. Okay.
I like specifics.
So we talked about at our meeting one time how we need to stop saying that, because people, like, oh, I'm sorry, I hadn't been to church. I haven't, oh, it's okay. We understand. But we just said that we realized that we need to stop saying that. You know, we had a staff meeting and say, we miss you. We miss your presence and we need you. You know, is there any kind, is there anything, you know, that we can do, or do you need to get plugged into a small group? You know, let us know if you need for us to journey with you. Yeah. And do you need a wake-up call? You know,
like at the hotel.
Do you need a wake-up call? And sometimes it may be somebody you hadn't seen in person or online. You send them a card, they'd be like, oh, they realize I've been missing. You know, send them a card. Yeah.
When I graduated from college, you know, I wasn't the most faithful church attender, and my mom and dad would call me every Sunday morning about 8 o'clock. And I said, why do y'all always call me at 8 o'clock? They said, well, we know if you get up, there's a chance you'll go to church. We know you may not.
Yeah. Yeah. But the main thing is letting them know that you have missed them and that their presence is vital to this faith, to your faith community. Their presence is vital to our community.
Tondala, thank you for an excellent lesson.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. You are welcome. You are welcome. We got into some Sunday, we got into about attire to come to church. You know, the shorts, the jeans.
Oh.
Does that make the church worldly? Or because, you know, we've been raised, you know, pants and suit coats, dress. And I was telling them, I don't know how much clear fingernail polish I don't put on my stockings. I used to put on, and I panicked when the day that I stopped wearing stockings, I was panicking. What would people think? You know, the day I wore some pants, I was panicking. You know, but we got into God looks at it's about your heart. That is what it's about, your heart, and coming as you are, and those are just some conversations that we just had, yeah, and it made and those are some hard conversations. But the thing about it is that people are coming up and their presence matters, coming to church. And that's it. Yeah. All right, y'all. It's 8:08. I'm going to pray. Unless somebody else want to pray. Anybody want to pray? Well, I'm fixing to pray then. Let us pray. Holy God, we're just so thankful for our time that we have had together tonight, dear Lord, just to talk about our presence in worship and presence at Sunday school and how it encourages us and it strengthens us and it just teaches us, dear Lord, the ways of your Son, Jesus Christ. So God, we're just so thankful for this gathering. We're thankful for the support that we have. So help us, dear Lord, to reach out to other people, our friends, our neighbors, our co-workers, our family members, just to let them know, dear Lord, that their presence matters, and we would love for them to come to worship God and help us to continue to just walk that journey of faith, dear Lord, when anxiety or doubt comes into our mind, when the Spirit is leading us to pick up the phone or to send a note to someone just to remind them that they belong to this faith community and that their presence matter and that we understand, dear Lord, what they're going through and knowing that it may be hard to get back because of this pandemic, but we need to journey together to help each of us, dear Lord, realize that presence matter. And in our presence is how we grow together as a faith community, and we will have the weapons to defeat Satan together. So gracious God, may you continue to show us the way that we need to go, dear Lord. In Jesus Christ's name we pray. Let us say together,
Amen.
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 Thank you.
This book is really
Thank
good.
you, Tondala.
Thank
This
you.
book-
I
this-
see y'all. I see
Good
y'all.
night.
I see y'all on the 5th lesson.
Okay.
This is a
Awesome.
good book. I think this is good. Y'all picked a good book. Y'all picked
How's
a good
Eddie
book.
doing?
Yeah.
Right. Do y'all
Thank
know who
you.
told us about that book? Jenny Garrett.
Good
Well,
shit.
how about that?
Good for
Yes,
her.
She's a smart young lady. I knew she was.
Jenny Garrett. All
How
right.
about that? That's
See
great.
y'all later.
Good
Bye.
one.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
How's Eddie? How's Eddie Bromley doing?
Oh,
Oh,
he's doing okay. I was on a Zoom call with him earlier. He was actually in the driveway at his house because someone was going to do some work. So he was just like, I'm just going to let him in so I can get the work done. He's just kind of tired, but he's breathing fine.
oh, good.
And, yeah, he's breathing fine. He's just kind of tired.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for the update.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah,
Thank
so-
you.
Bye.
All right,
Bye-bye.
see you later.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
Sydney.
Bye-bye.
Night.
Good
See you in a
night.
bit. Bye, Tondala.
Bye-bye.